Let's get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Ken Kent. I'm the founder of Signworld 33 years ago. 33 years ago, I'm sitting 2 blocks from our first location. I could look out the window and see the place. It's been a wonderful ride, Today, you're going to meet 4 Signworld owners, and you have the opportunity to ask them any questions that you want to ask them. So this is your chance. This is your opportunity. Whatever is your greatest concern, whatever is your greatest fear, turn that into a simple, open-ended question. And when it's your turn, ask the owners, and all 4 owners will answer your question one by one. You'll get 4 answers to every question you ask. We like to go in a round robin situation. So ask one question, we move on to the next person. So Jared, you'll be up first. Please be ready. And then Clint, you'll be right after Jared, and Ryan, and so on. And we'll just go around the horn. And trust me, folks, inside of an hour, I think you'll get almost all of your questions answered. We'll have plenty of time for everybody to ask their questions. We're going to let our owners introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their business. Also want to say hello to Sheree Ewing. Sheree is our Director of Marketing. This is being recorded, and Sheree keeps us on technical track here. Okay, so let's start out with Don and Fay Pearson. Don, Fay, tell us a little bit about yourselves and tell us about your business.
All right. Our name of our company is Signage. We're in Southern California, just south of San Diego, in a community called Chula Vista. Prior to starting our own business, I was in corporate training, and Fay was an interior designer. And we've been in business 3 years in March, so last March, so 3.5 years. And our facility is about 2,000 square feet. And currently we have 2 employees, a part-time employee plus Fay and I. You want projected sales or anything like that?
Yes, yeah. Tell us, please, your projected gross sales for 2021.
Yeah, 480,000 for 2021. We're on track and a little above that so far for the year. And our biggest customer, we actually have 2 customers. San Diego State University just did an order with us for about 70,000. And we have another customer that has a hotel that did 70,000 last year with us. So, and that's the Cove at La Jolla. And so that's our biggest project. And I gave you the background career already.
Okay, thank you very much. Eric Gustafson. Eric, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your business.
Yeah, hi, thanks. The name of my business is Impression Signs and Graphics. We are located in Oakdale, Minnesota, which is a suburb of St. Paul here in the Twin Cities. Been in business 8 years. We are currently in 5,000 square feet with 2 drive-in bays. I have 3 full-time employees, a part-time employee, myself, and we hire a lot of contractors to help with projects. For 2021, we're projecting about $950,000 in revenue and about just over $1 million in booked orders. The biggest project we've ever done is $150,000, which was a bunch of different signage at a project at an existing shopping mall. And my background, I was originally a CPA and then spent many years in finance, operations, leadership in corporate America.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Mike Reilly, tell us about yourself and your business, please.
Good morning, everybody. My business is called Starfish Signs and Graphics. We're located in San Clemente, which is midway between LA and San Diego on the coast. We've been in business 9 years. We have about 4,500 square feet of leased space. And in terms of employees, we have 6 full-time equivalents. So there's a couple part-time employees in there, but 6 plus my wife and I who are involved full-time in the business. Our projected sales for this year, I have to pick a number that's just above Eric, so we'll say $1 million. We started out the year at with a projection of 1.2, but our first quarter was slow coming out of COVID, so we'll see where we end up. And biggest customer, I'll pick one by number of orders. We have a customer that's probably the largest commercial property owner in California, and we do about 100 projects a year with them. And then the good part is they refer us to their tenants for building signage and so forth. So there's a bunch of others that aren't counted in that total.
Very good, Mike. Congratulations. And last but not least, Jack Werner. Jack, tell us your story.
Hey everybody, I joined Signworld 26 years ago, back in 1995. I started in 1,200 square feet with one employee. I ended up in 5,000 square feet with a staff of 11 doing about 1.3 million. I then sold my operation to go into a sort of a partnership with Ken to learn his end of the business. Finished buying him out 7 years ago. I'm now the present owner of Signworld. So when I talk today, if a question goes to my experience running an operation, I'll speak from their perspective. When it goes to more training and policy, I'll speak from that perspective. My largest customer was a regional developer for Subway, 200 locations. I did about $250,000 a year with that one customer. Subway changes their logo every 4 years, and it's a constant turn of location to location to change the graphics.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Jack, did you want to give us a couple more definitions, Jack? The printer.
Oh, I can. A lot of times people confuse us with printers. Printers do the paper-held commodity items, brochures, catalogs, business cards, letterheads. Please don't confuse us with them. That's a stagnant industry, equipment heavy, and because of desktop publishing, e-reading, and buying on the internet, it's a stagnant industry. Sign industry is a custom production, putting all the unusual graphics and all the things that you can put on a piece of paper you hold in your hand. As small as a postage stamp, the entire side of a building, but it's the application after that, the putting it on the vehicle, screwing it to the post, gluing it to the wall, sticking it in the ground that you can't order on the internet. So our business is thriving, we're growing. It's an industry that will always be there. Signworld is not a franchise. We know that everything else you're looking at is probably a franchise. We're not here to disparage that. Signworld is different in that we have no rules, no royalties. A franchise is appropriate if it's a cookie cutter approach to another customer every day, but this is custom manufacturing to a small core of repeatable customers. So we just don't fit the mold of a franchise. Our owners tend to be more entrepreneurial. They each run it their own way with help and guidance, but they each have their own culture and how they do things. So very different from a franchise. Ken, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Jared, come off of mute and throw a question at us, please.
Sure. 2020 was obviously unprecedented in terms of, just the pandemic and everything, labor shortages coming out of 2020. How did your individual businesses, really take on 2020? Because it didn't happen going at the beginning of 2020. I'm imagining you had to adjust in real time, and you're probably still feeling some of the effects of it. So just curious how you guys handled that.
Okay, so Don and Fay, so when you look at the whole year, how did it shake out for you at the end?
We actually were only about $1,000 off than the year before in sales, which surprised us. We had 3 employees, full-time employees that we lost. We did bring in one who worked from home for a while, so we made that adjustment. And I think I'm married to the world's best salesperson because he just kept us afloat and kept us going.
The big difference, I think, for us was that our profit was down about $50,000. But I think that the industry, people were very competitive just to keep their people working, and that's why.
Okay, so sales were the same. Eric, how did 2020 shake out for you when all was said and done?
It was good. We were actually down 4% on gross sales, but when they factor in forgiven PPP money, we were actually up 4%, and our net margin and owner compensation was basically flat from 2019, which was a good year. So I was happy with 2020, believe it or not.
Okay, Mike Reilly?
We did a little worse than Eric. We were down 7% in sales, 2020 over 2019. And for us, the COVID decline, I'll call it, started in Q2 2019 and continued through Q2 2020 and continued through Q1 2021. So 4 quarters where we were below where we needed to be, and as Eric, we took advantage of the 2 rounds of PPP assistance. And then just one other thing that I'll mention is we were able to find some new opportunities during COVID. We did a lot of acrylic, shields and sneeze guards and so forth. So that helped us out for a while.
And Jack, your thoughts?
Most Signworld owners had somewhat of a dip, but a lot of things rolled right through. And as Mike was saying, sneeze guards and distancing signs. But I think the bigger question is, what's it like since COVID, or what's it like as we're going through this year? Don and Fay, how's this year comparing to last year?
So we in July had our best month ever. We did 75,000 in sales, with a low percentage of that being outsourced. We're basically, for us, we feel like we had started last year a year late. So we're having a great year, a great quarter, and we're really happy with what's going on as things open up. And then one thing that happened for us during the 2020 is the cannabis companies in California were good customers of ours. So, and they had a lot of money.
Eric, well, how's this year ramping up compared to last year?
Through June, our revenue was up 49%. Our margins weren't quite as good, but it was a really strong start. I don't anticipate we'll continue on that clip through the end of the year, but still expecting 30% or so growth by end of year.
Mike?
Our Q2, so I mentioned about Q1. Q2 was a record for us. It was our first $300,000 quarter, so that was good. We got to do it all over again now, and that's the challenge. We have a decent pipeline, so the potential is there if we execute properly.
Okay. Clint Hoffman. Clint, come off of mute.
Sir, I'm going to assume that most or all of you had no experience with sign making when you got into this venture. Tell me about the learning curve, the first year or two, support from corporate, things you had to learn along the way to become proficient at this.
Okay. Let's start backwards this time. Mike Reilly, why don't you lead off and answer that for us?
Yeah, I didn't mention my background before when we talked, but my background is biochemical engineering, and my career was all with multinationals. So I had no experience in graphic design and no experience in small business operation. So everything was new to me. I guess my quick observation is you kind of find a model that matches your personality and interests. So for me, I'm an engineer. I like solving problems. I like building things. So we tend to do a bit more in-house in terms of fabrication and installation. And that part of it has worked fine for us. Probably the others will talk about a different approach, but that's the way I approached it.
Okay. Eric?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, so I came in with no experience. I'm not creative. I knew nothing about the sign industry. So the training was a great start to help me just understand enough about what was going on to actually get started. And then you hire that first person who hopefully knows a lot more than you. So you can actually just start delivering customer needs. For me, being originally an accountant and a numbers guy, I spent a lot of time trying to understand both two things. One, am I providing a good solution for what the customer needs? And then two, what's it going to cost me so I can price it such that we're not going to go out of business? And the focus on those two things allowed me to just learn as I went and learn about materials and learn how things go and what types of things can go wrong, and then implement processes to prevent them. And so, the general business background I had from a numbers perspective helped me through all those things. And you just kind of learn as you go and have a great support network around you to learn through the Signworld network. So I'd say it went pretty well.
Don, Fay?
Yeah, so I have had some experience in the print industry, so I was familiar with Pantone colors and graphic design and things like that. I didn't have any experience in the sign industry. I think we're 3.5 years into it. The learning curve, it still continues as you get into bigger, more expensive signs. I think the training was a good start. I think the network is outstanding. I had a customer call me and they said, "Do you do digital displays?" And I said, "Yes." And I hung up the phone and I called Dan and I'm like, "What's a digital display and who sells them?" So the only other thing I could add is, as far as my experience, when I sent a quote over to a vendor, I spelled substrate wrong. So, I had to learn from basics. How do you spell substrate? So no experience, but in the sign industry, but I think the best tool here is the network of people that you can call and support you. That's outstanding.
And Jack?
Nobody in Signworld came with sign experience. We're not looking for the artistic talent. We're looking for your project management skill set, your relationship build schedule abilities. Signs is not brain surgery. It's putting graphics on substrates. And so we'll teach you how to run the business, and everybody coming has strengths and has weaknesses. Some have had customer interface, but not managing products. Some have had managing product, but not customer interface. Some are coming from the financial side like Eric, and some have no knowledge of P&L statements. And so that's part of why you're buying into an organization that can help shore up those strengths or help with the strengths and the weaknesses.
Okay. Ryan, come off of mute, throw a question at us.
Yep. Yeah, I guess, like you said, a lot of us on here, including myself, are looking at franchises, and I guess maybe I have a two-part question the question that was asked before focuses on that. A little bit is about the training and maybe advertising and the support from others, since, like you said, we're not coming in there with much knowledge. But I will ask maybe in a little different way, is what was the most difficult part in your journey in getting your business up and running and profitable?
Mike Reilly, what was the most difficult part?
For me, it was pricing. And, I want to be clear, when I say pricing, I don't mean costing. We have good tools to figure out costing, but pricing, in my definition, is figuring out what the market will bear. And there's a lot of trial and error and talking to people and so forth that goes into that. So that was initially my biggest challenge.
And by the way, today, Mike is now one of our teachers of pricing. We rely on him quite a bit to run a webinar every once in a while and talk to the other owners about pricing. He's learned a lot over the years. Eric Gustafson, toughest part.
I have to actually agree with Mike. Coming up with the right price to win the job and still be profitable, and not feel like you're gouging people can be a challenge. I mean, you learn through training a lot of the standard markups and whatnot, and what the industry standards may have been in the past, but each market is different. Your ability to meet those targets is going to vary in different markets, and figuring out who you're competing against on each order really influences what your markup and ultimate margin is going to be. And so I still to this day price a lot of my jobs, I would say, on feel, based on my assessment of all those factors and who I'm dealing with, if it's a competitive bid situation, et cetera, et cetera. So it was the hardest thing at the beginning, and I would still say it's one of the biggest challenges. But you got to price to make sure you stay in business and not win every job.
Don, Fay?
Yeah, so, we, we felt everything went really smooth, but I think one of the toughest challenges we continue to have is HR, hiring the right people, have them come to work regularly. This last year didn't help us at all with that. It just gave people more excuses. So I think that our first hire was a really good hire for a long time until he wasn't. And then it's been kind of sketchy since. We do have a good designer now, but HR has been our area hiring the right people.
Fay, anything to add?
Well, I just want to agree with the other two owners that I think pricing is critical. And you can't have a standard. You almost have to do each job separate. You don't know who you're dealing against or who you're working against, what the competition is. And then right now there's shortages in supplies, which also affect some of the pricing. So I still think pricing is a very critical component.
Yeah, the
Okay.
contract.
All right,
Can I
Jack?
do a quick follow-up of these guys? Don said he was a good hire until he wasn't. Can you explain a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah, so your first hire, you get really reliant on them because, they do everything for you and they get a little, because you have no experience and they have experience. The guy we hired had 20 years experience, very good artist, very good designer, good all around sign guy. But I think he got a little cocky that we counted on him. And as we grew the business and hired more people, he kind of felt the pressure of that. And he abruptly quit for a variety of reasons. But I'll tell you what was a relief about that is we were really reliant on him in the beginning. And when he left, we could hire somebody that we could work closer with because we had more knowledge. So when your first hire, you have to rely on them. Your second hire, you get more independence.
Jack, your thoughts?
To that question or to the previous, you're starting a new business from scratch. And so the reason why you're buying into a system, not doing it solo, is to have the people that have all the other skill sets. The biggest asset you're buying into is this culture of other owners. The HR exec is helping the sales guy, who's helping the finance guy, who's helping the marketing guy, who's helping the logistics guy, who's helping the HR guy. We all come with strengths, we all come with weaknesses, and that's why you're buying into a system.
Christopher Kraus. Christopher, come on from you. Hello, Christopher. John Steffes. John, come on from you. John Steffes, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Can you hear
John.
me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. I was just wondering for each of the owners, if you could describe in your circumstances how long it was before you were able to actually start paying yourself, and maybe I'm asking about break even, but really being able to draw a salary and not have to be supplementing with your own resources in terms of money.
Okay. Eric Gustafson. Eric, how many months were you in business before you took your first paycheck?
I took money out of the business almost immediately. I was fortunate to get like a $20,000 order like 2 months in, and so we were already profitable. Not enough, so it wasn't a lot of money, but my first 6 months, I paid myself. So it wasn't a regular salary, but I've always paid myself a percentage of the profit. And as the business has grown, I now take a base salary and continue to pay myself additional X percent of the net profit. So, it was a few years before I was making, decent money. But it wasn't like supplemental of what I was making before right away, but I never had to put another dime into the business after we started.
Okay. Don and Fay?
We started paying ourselves within the first 8 months. And we projected what we needed, where we needed to pay us. And we worked towards that. And we were very comfortable at that point paying us. And we've not paid us since. even during COVID, we were able to pay us some money.
Okay. Mike Reilly?
Yeah, I mean, you know, some part of the question related to distributions versus salary, et cetera, you know, are driven by tax considerations. In our business, there was a benefit for Laura, my wife, to be paid a lot in salary because it will be beneficial for her in terms of Social Security. I wasn't in that situation. So, you know, some details there, but the question, I guess, is if, however the cash gets distributed, when was it available? I would answer like Eric did, that it was a couple of years before there was a decent level of outflow from the business.
Okay, but in the beginning though, there were some distributions. When did you start taking some distributions? Although as minor as they may be, whether it was to cover expenses like insurance programs and so on that befell to you or whatever.
Yeah, probably a year or so.
Okay. Jack Werner?
I was honestly profitable my first month in business, took my first paycheck at 6 months.
Okay. Brian Rotto, Brian, come off of mute. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so from a practical standpoint, a day-to-day operations, if because you're running, you know, on minimal staff, if someone is out, how do you respond to that? How do you handle that issue?
Fay? Somebody doesn't show up, what do you do?
Well, you try to do a workaround, and it depends on what it is. If it's the installer that didn't show up, or the graphic designer didn't show up. So you just do a workaround.
And most customers understand this situation. They're in business too. So it's just about communication.
Eric?
Yeah, I've been fortunate. I haven't had that situation come up much. I remember in the early years, a couple times going and back and actually trying to help with production in those rare cases. But usually stuff would just sit for a day and we'd get a little bit behind and then we'd get caught up. So we've been fortunate though, that this really hasn't been an issue for us over the years.
Mike Reilly?
Yeah, I'll broaden the question a little bit because, you know, because everything's custom and because we're doing different stuff all the time, it's not like we have one person that does the same job every day. And if they don't show up, there's an issue. You could also have the situation where you get 5 orders tomorrow for something that you don't have the capability to make in-house. So to me, the challenge is how do you build your internal and external team together to give you, you know, the capacity and the flexibility to do what comes. And that's kind of how we've approached it. In terms of our employees specifically, we've consciously taken the position that we believe one of the factors that helps us attract and retain the best people is flexibility. So, you know, for example, we have 2 employees who just returned from maternity leave and are now working part-time, some of that from home. We have 1 employee who's a fitness trainer and works 1 day out doing that job, et cetera. So for us, having flexibility to handle those kind of things is sort of something we've built in or tried to build in from the start.
Jack, your thoughts?
Well, your goal in the beginning, while you're starting with 1 employee, hopefully within a few months, you're busy enough, you're hiring number 2. So you're never dependent on just 1. Know that when Signworld owners have had equipment go down, et cetera, we've had fires, floods, other Signworlders have produced for them. We're starting to work now with some virtual graphic artist designers that you can hire on an as-needed basis. So there's a lot of workarounds to doing it. But in most cases, you're not trying to make projects that are due tomorrow. You've got production schedules, so you're working through that.
Okay. Doug, come off of mute. Doug, tell us your last name. Hello, Doug.
Just trying to get off mute there. Doug Stern.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
So my question is, how has your business evolved? And, you know, what is, from a product mix, from a, you know, finding your go-to product, or is there a, go-to product mix? What's big for you today, and how did that evolve? Why did you go that direction?
Okay, Mike
And-
Reilly. Mike, what's big for you today and how did you get there?
So I guess if I was smarter, we would have realized this up front, but we're 3 miles from the Pacific Ocean in Southern California. So we're in an expensive area for a manufacturing business. So we realized after a while that we need to go after the more challenging projects, the more demanding customers. And that's sort of the general orientation. And then within that, some of it is contacts, from my previous jobs, and some of it is luck. I'll just mention the luck part. If you Google sign removal anywhere in California, we pretty much come up #1, and we come up all over the country. And in fact, we get calls from overseas. I sort of know how that happened, but it's nothing we can take credit for. So we do a lot of sign removals now. Wasn't initially on our list of things to do, but the customers are coming to us, so we've taken that on.
Okay, Eric Gustafson, what's big for you today and how did you get there?
Well, I'll say this, we still remain what I would call a generalist. We take on a wide variety of scope and projects that is a mix of stuff we do in-house and outsource. We've evolved to a higher percentage of outsource versus in-house by taking on bigger, more challenging projects where we're great at project managing, but maybe we don't choose to, bring in the infrastructure in-house to manage the manufacturing. So that's allowed us to be very agile with a really small team and still pull off very big projects by relying on other great vendors and suppliers. And I think the key to all that, though, is building a culture. And within our team, we have a culture of serving those customers and helping them succeed, regardless of the solution and whether it's something we make or something we buy. And that's really how we've evolved, by building that culture and serving our customers.
Hey, what's big for you today? How did you get there?
Well, we're still pretty much a generalist, and I think that comes along with somebody calls up and says, "Can you do this?" And you always say yes, and then you figure it out. We are doing a lot of electrical signs, and like Eric said, we have a small staff, but we have a lot of vendors that we trust and we use, and they've helped us be able to expand our repertoire of what we can do without us having to do it here in-house. We do currently, I think with 2020 and the COVID, there's been a lot of sign renovations, sign removals, and we've taken on an awful lot of those. And it seems like we're getting a lot of repeat customers and people calling us saying, "Hey, we've been reading your reviews and we can't wait to work with you." So all that's just really helped us, but we're still the generalists.
Okay. And Jack, in the end, what worked for you and how did you get there?
Most of my customers are restaurant chains and retail chains because I came from that world. I could speak their language. I understood their culture. The model is to be the generalist to begin with and let the niche come to you over a couple of years, whether it's by type of customer, type of project, or things that fit to the staff that you've hired and what they can be good at. So lots of different directions that the business can evolve over time.
Okay. Mark Glendon, Mark, come on from you. Go ahead.
Hey there.
Yes, we hear you fine.
Sorry, what was that?
Go ahead, Mark, with your question. We can hear you.
Oh, I'm just listening to all the questions. Sorry.
No question.
No questions. Thanks. Though.
Okay, Scott Fitzpatrick, I'm sorry, Scott Fitzpatrick, come on from you. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, this is Tammy. I think one of the big questions I have now that you're in business, what do you wish you would have known then that you know now?
Fay, what did you wish you knew then that you know now?
Probably how to set up the infrastructures and get the business established with policies, procedures, and the infrastructure prior to getting busy. Because once you're busy, you're kind of reacting instead of having all that preparation and structure set up ahead.
Yeah.
All right, systems and procedures set up ahead of time. Don, anything to add to that?
No, it's just, we didn't set up our core bridge, and that was a challenge for some time.
Eric, what did you wish you have done differently in the beginning to get where you're at?
Well, it's really more what I wish I knew then. And what I wish I knew then was that bigger projects are manageable. And you just could have done more big stuff that I probably shied away from in the early years. So we could have, grown faster if I would have known how relatively easy even big projects are.
Okay, Mike Reilly?
Well, what I would say I didn't know was more of a interpersonal learning. When I started out, I'm an engineer, I'm an introvert. I don't talk to people. I have no interest in sales, never had any interest in sales, never spent any time in sales. And we hired an external salesperson twice, and neither of them were successful. And so after that experience, I cracked the code for how to sell signs in this business. I know exactly how to sell signs now. And, if you want to pay me a large consulting fee, I'll share that with you. But basically, it took me, even at age whatever, which I won't tell you, it took me sort of learning something about myself and what I could and couldn't do that I wasn't aware of going into this.
Okay, Jack?
It's an interesting business because it evolves over time, and figuring out what you're good at, what you're not good at is part of what your process is going to be.
Okay. Sean Campbell. Sean, come on from you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just kind of curious if everybody could just kind of talk a little bit about work-life balance.
Okay. Fay, work-life balance.
Well, we have 2 grandchildren that live here, and I'm able to go pick up Caleb from 2nd grade every day. Last year, it was his 1st grade class. And we are getting ready to go out of town tomorrow, just the 2 of us, to celebrate my birthday and take a few days off. So I think it's great.
I also would like to add, you can put as many hours into this business as you want. And there's always work to do, and there's always customers to respond to. So there are definitely some weeks that we put in a lot of hours, but we get to decide on what we're going to do. Yeah.
Happy birthday, Fay.
Thank you.
Eric Gustafson. Eric, work-life balance.
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's pretty good. Early years, I put a lot of late nights in, not late, but I'd stay at the office till 7 or 8 and just trying to learn and understand and get quotes out and all that. But over the last 3-4 years, I've really made a point to take a lot of time off in the summer. I mean, I just took off the whole week of 4th of July. I'd say at least every other Friday I've been taking off in the summers. I go home at 5:30 most days now. Like Don said, though, there's always more work I could be doing. I'm just maybe right now choosing to make sure I have that work-life balance and still making sure the business is still evolving.
Mike Reilly, work-life balance.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're all at a different point in our journey. My wife and I don't have kids at home at the moment, and we sort of feel some pressure to get the business to a level we want it to be at so that we can sell it and retire. So, I spend a lot of hours at work. I will say, kind of what Don and Fay said, that it's flexible. So it's not low involvement, but it's definitely flexible, and I can come up with a schedule that works for me.
When you say retire, do you mean retire earlier than age 65?
Not sure how to answer that. I retired once and was retired for a year, and it was great. And then Signworld, came along, and so I hope to retire a second time.
Okay. Jack Werner, work-life balance.
I was on the Little League field at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 days a week, managing my boys' teams. my customers' employees just thought I was out seeing other customers. I didn't work a lot of nights. I didn't work a lot of weekends. You can either work a lot at it or you can delegate more of it out. That's the choice you make, and the skill you have to hone in on is to be able to delegate things out.
Okay. People have been moving around on the screen here. Greg, did you have a chance yet? Greg, are you there?
Yes, sir. I don't even know if my video camera's on or not, but my question was pretty simple. It had to do with hiring. And it was, can you speak on hiring issues and retainment issues for the new hires? I know you guys have touched a little bit on that as far as, you know, you relied on a lot of the first individual you hired and stuff like that. But, you know, I know just coming from COVID and all that, that it's been tough to bring people in and keep people in. And how are you guys adjusting to that? And if you found any solutions?
Okay, Greg, for your information, our guests are not on camera. Only our staff members are on camera and our Signworld owners. Okay, so Eric Gustafson, turnover over the years, turnover during COVID, hiring, employee issues. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate in this area. Most of the people I've hired have been people that somebody knew, or and like our most recent hire was last fall, almost a year ago. And she came from a good customer of ours whose business was down. And so she was, but we had worked with her and knew that she was great, and she's been great. So I know this isn't, I'm really lucky in this area, but I do attribute it to two things. One, just I mentioned earlier, culture. We've got a culture, we're almost like a family. And then compensation, I probably pay a little bit more than most of my competitors. I do a profit sharing bonus program, paying out bonuses to employees every 6 months. And I think those little things do make a difference and you know, have accomplished the goal of retaining talent for us.
Okay, Mike Reilly, employment issues, turnover. Go ahead.
You know, I would say that building the team is kind of a third part of for us anyway, the business strategy. If you consider like your product strategy, your marketing strategy, and your HR strategy. And for us, our model is we like to hire people earlier in their careers, closer to entry-level people, and train them the way we want to do things. It makes it harder in terms of not having the experience, but we tend to get the right, like Eric's saying, the right culture that's a fit for us. Hiring people earlier in their careers also brings with it, you know, women become pregnant, people move out of the area to pursue something else, people go back to college, you know. So we've kind of decided, you know, I read one time that McDonald's turns over their workforce more than once a year, and they build their model around that. They plan for that. They know that, they accept that. For us, like, we kind of build it around having an average tenure of 5 years. We would like it to be longer, but we have kind of figured that's what works for us. And then we try to have the hiring and training procedures in place to make that work.
Okay, Fay?
I'll go ahead and answer this one. So,
Don?
So when we first hired people, we followed the Signworld process, and we hired a guy, and he was with us for 2 years. And as the business grew, and we hired additional people 3 weeks before the governor shut down the state of California. So this last year, the first year we outsourced a lot of work, and we had, like I said, we had a good designer. But this last year has been a difficult challenge because of unemployment and things like that. So it's kind of hard to say. We've hired people and they haven't showed up, and that's been that was a challenge for us last year. But now we have a really good designer, we have a really good installer, and I have a part-time installer with his license for electrical signs. So we're in a really good place today. And I would say we also tend to compensate a little bit more than what they're used to making. So that's helpful. And the other thing too is I think we're a good employer. I think that this industry has people in it that are not really corporate level, if you will. And there's a lot of cussing and yelling, and that can be. So I think that's one thing that's made a difference for us as well as part of our cultures. I think we're a kind employer.
Jack?
You know, my second employee, my second hire was with me 10 years later when I sold. I had very few people that left that I didn't want to have leave. You hire for talent, you fire for behavior, but this is a career, not a job. You're going to hire a journeyman to begin with. We'll help you find them and test them. After that, you're going to hire more out of culture and train the staff so that they can live to the standards that you want to have. But there's a workforce out there. We have owners that have their original employee from 10 and 20 years ago.
Melinda McGuire. Melinda, come off of mute. I apologize, Melinda. I sent you the wrong link. Forgive me.
That's okay. Good afternoon, everybody. This may have been covered already, but one character trait or business experience of yours do you think contributes most to your success?
Okay, Mike Reilly, what one character trait contributes most to your success over the years?
Well, that one's easy to answer. And just, I'll preface it by saying we had an employee who was in the industry for 20 years, in the sign industry for 20 years. And he told me one day that 70% of what he does on any given day, he's never done before. So with that as background, what we've settled on as the key characteristic, not just for me, but for our team, is a commitment, as we say, it is a commitment to continuous personal and professional learning and growth.
Okay, Eric Gustafson, character trait that has led to your success.
Yeah, so I'd really equate it to one of our company's core values, which is client success first. And I mean, if I lose sleep over anything in this business, it's that the solution we provide for our customer meets or exceeds their objectives for the project. And so it's that mindset of always making sure our clients succeed first, I think has been a big factor to our success.
Fay, your best character trait to lead to your success?
I think it's our communication. We have a lot of people call us and we get back to them and they say that they don't get that from other sign companies, that their calls aren't returned, or there's a lack of communication about what is going on with the job. And I think that we're just very good about that. Don is really good, I have to admit. He keeps up with all the customers excellent.
Okay. Don, anything to add? Go ahead.
No, I think that's an area that we agree that our customers give us feedback about staying in communication with them. So it's the same.
Okay. Jack Werner?
Honor your commitments, do what you promise. That's going to make you rise well above the competition. Most sign companies are owned by, consider the contractor that you hired recently, where half of them never showed up for the appointment. The ones that did were late, unorganized. You had to follow up to get the quote from them, and they probably didn't finish the project on time, on budget. So it's honoring your commitments and having process, procedures, and respecting the commitments you made.
And I'll just say that again, just show up on time. If you can show up on time, you will be very, very busy. Herrera, come off of mute. Hello, Herrera. Padma, come off of mute.
Hi, Ken. Hi, everyone.
Go ahead.
This is very, very informative. Thank you. The question I have is about territories. From what I understand, the business is set up in a territory. However, you can go after a business anywhere. So is there situations where you're competing with the neighboring territory, Signworld, and how do you handle those kind of situations?
Don Pearson, do you compete with other Signworld owners?
On a rare occasion, I do. And usually if we know there's another competitor, we talk about it, and the first person who is in the client, we try to take care of that customer and let that first person get in. But for the most part, I think within a very short distance, less than an hour's drive, I probably have 9 other competitors and of Signworld. And like I said, they're not really competitors. In fact, right now in my driveway, I have Signs for San Diego truck. It's been sitting there for a week because he's got to install. So I use them a lot for calls for help. I did a lot in the beginning. And then today I have signs manufactured by other Signworld companies. All my electrical signs are produced by Signs for San Diego. And I can consult with them. So yeah, we have a lot of them in our area, but we're not competing against them.
There's no shortage of people.
So you help each other out far, far more than you ever compete with them.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Eric Gustafson, you're in the same situation. There's 5, 6, 10 other Signworld owners in your area. Do you compete with them?
You know, the truth is I don't know most of the time. I don't have that luxury of knowing, but I think more often than not, the answer is no. Occasionally we'll bid a similar project and learn about it. And, you know, typically one would back off if they were sort of there first. But it's sort of a non-issue, I guess I would say. I have far more other non-Signworld competitors that I worry about a lot more that are just geographically closer to me.
And the flip side, how about working with other Signworld owners, doing projects together, sharing employees, supplies, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, you know, in the early years, I felt like we did that a lot more. The last few years, it just hasn't come up. I mean, I've offered to help others, but it just hasn't come up much. But I know that in a pinch, we'd be there for each other for sure.
Okay, Mike Reilly, you compete with the other Signworld owners around you?
Well, we do in the sense that we have a lot of business in other Signworld owners territories, if we call it that. But how it came to us, you know, like I'm not a member of the Chamber of Commerce in somebody else's territory or something like that. So, you know, most of the new business that comes to us is people that are requesting a quote. And like Eric was saying, we don't often know if our fellow Signworld colleagues are bidding on those jobs. What I will do is, you know, occasionally customers will send us artwork from another sign company and say, can you give us a quote for this? And if it is a Signworld owner's artwork, I will let them know that, you know, I'll talk with them and say, you know, are you guys going after this? And if so, you know, we'll bid higher on that or whatever. But that's pretty much my answer.
Okay. And Jack, Werner, your thoughts?
You know, you're buying into a culture where you want everybody else's help. So very, very rare that we find somebody competing with each other. We're really more, as Ken mentioned, sharing projects, sharing ideas, and doing things that way. We're more collaborative than we are competitive.
Okay. Shlomo, come off of mute. Am I pronouncing it right? Shlomo, hello. Michael Daniel, Michael, are you there? Go ahead. Hello, Michael Daniel.
Yes, I'm here.
Doug,
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Doug. Michael.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank each of the panelists for taking their time to address us as potential franchisees. It's you know, it's part of the business day, and it's something that I'm sure that you had to volunteer to do. So I just wanted to thank you all for that, number one. Number two, my primary question has to do with how you've been able to scale the business by in terms of your growth over time. What types of ways that you have you been able to scale your business over time? Basically, that's the question.
Mike Reilly, how have you scaled your business over time?
You know, I look at it as a sort of a flow process, and what I try to determine is where's the bottleneck. There's always a bottleneck somewhere. It changes, but so the way I look at it is, what do we need to grow? Do we need more leads? Do we need to close more of the leads that we get? Do we need to complete more of the jobs that are in our work in process, and then address that? And, it's ironic because early on, I think most of us would probably say that getting more leads is the challenge. We're just this year, we kind of decided we're in the phase where we have enough leads. That's not the issue. Now it's better execution on the leads that we have. So that's the way I look at it, is kind of where's the bottleneck and then what do you need to do to address that bottleneck?
Eric Gustafson, how have you scaled your business over time?
I like Mike's approach to it. I wish I was as specifically doing those things and looking at it that way. I probably have not. I mean, we have grown in size, doubled our space. We've got more employees that have allowed us to scale. But as I think about, how do we get into some of our bigger dollar projects that allow just true revenue scaling? And I'll give an example. A out-of-state commercial construction company asked us to hang some mesh banners like almost an hour away from our shop. And I really, didn't want to do it, but we did because I knew they were building apartment buildings. And then a month later, they're like, well, can you print us some banners? And again, not a great project, but, a little bit more meaningful. And right now, they just by executing and communicating, we're now doing, I think it's like, I think their contract $70,000 for all the signage at one of their apartment complexes they're building. And so it's sometimes not being afraid to take that small order on the front end if it's the right type of customer that could lead to more. So having a vision for what it could bring as a new customer comes in and fostering those relationships into more work has been good.
Don, Fay, how have you scaled your business?
So I would say in the beginning, you get $20,000 worth of business in a month and you're overwhelmed. And over time, you learn to deal with that. And I think to scale the business, it takes courage. I think it's to get a project that is worth $30,000 when you were overwhelmed at 20 is it takes a leap of faith and courage to manage that. So I'd say the two things that for us was the courage to take on projects that we're not aware of or had to learn. And the other one is just our capability to manage the process and the flow of the order when they're much bigger.
Jack Werner, how did you scale your business over 10 years?
You've got to build processes. You got to hire quality people and then nurture them and delegate to them. You got to macro manage, not micromanage. You got to build your swagger so the customer has the confidence to buy from you. It's all those things that allow you to grow the business. Most Signworld owners will tell you, in growing your sign business, the limit of the business is not the lack of business out there, it's there. It's not the competition, you can get past it. It's your own bandwidth to how much can I handle. No matter what I have right now, am I able and willing to take on more? The limit of the business is you.
Okay. Well, we're on the hour and our time is up. Everybody had at least one swing at the bat. We hope we got most of your questions answered. We want to thank our panel members, Don and Fay. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Eric, same. Thank you. Good to see you. And Mike Reilly, as always. Thank you. Jack, do you want to close it out for us, please?
I will. Thanks, Ken. We'll have another webinar just like this on Wednesday, April 24th, 3 weeks from today, same time, with a different panel.
August 24th.
August 24th. Different panel of owners. We have a Discovery Day once a month. We're still doing them by Zoom until we can get back to meeting together. We have a Discovery Day coming up on Friday, August 13th. Next one will be Friday, September 17th. So talk to Dan or Gene or Ken or myself, and let's work on next steps for you. We're here to help you and hope that we can help you make a decision whether this makes sense or not. Thanks all for attending. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you all.